What is going on, Brady? Today we're going to be talking about the risks in land flipping. Transparently, I'm going to show you the risks. I'm going to show you some risks that I've had, actual deal where I didn't make money. I'm also going to show you how to avoid them, because the most important thing about investing or doing anything in business is just knowing, hey, what are the possible downsides? As long as you know what those downsides are and you understand them, you can find a way to mitigate them. So that's what I'm going to explain in this video. All right. Now, let's crack into it. Okay, so it really comes down to the monetary risk. Okay, and that comes in two forms. Number one is going to be the property. Okay, like putting money into an actual property. And then number two is going to be the marketing. Okay, so putting money into the property could mean like you actually buying the property, which is not a strategy that we teach you to do. We show you how to use other people's money, which just eliminates that, which we'll talk about in a second. And then the second is the marketing. You're always going to have to put money into some form of marketing to find the deals. Okay, if you want to have an effective acquisition channel where like you're consistently getting deals, you're going to have to pay. Like you got to send out mailers, text, cold calls. You got to do something. Okay, so there's always going to be money put into marketing. So we're going to talk about that. All right. Now let's talk about property monetary risks. Okay, so the biggest thing is buying a property at a price where you would not make money in the deal. Okay, and transparently, after doing over 7 figures in land deals, I've had one deal where I've lost money. Okay, I lost about $1,500 on it. All right, I made two mistakes in this deal that I could have avoided, and this was a learning lesson for me, and now I'm going to share it with you. Okay, number one, I went after an infill lot where the surrounding comps were not good. Now, what an infill lot is, it's just a lot that's 1 acre under, and the only use case, so the only thing it's meant for is to be built on. Okay, I'm not saying infill lots are bad. I don't think they're great for beginners because they do hold more risk, because if you mess up, like you can really mess up on them. But the biggest problem with them is that the comps, right? So what they're worth can vary wildly based on, what part of the neighborhood they're in. As I'm about to show you, simply by being on a different street in a neighborhood can drastically affect the price from the point of it being unprofitable to it being a profitable deal. Okay. And the second thing is that I overprojected how much it was going to sell for, because I actually sold another infill on the neighborhood where I made over $12,000 in profit. Okay, that was the problem. Okay, so let's look at it. So this was the deal. Okay, again, it's an infill lot. So this was about 0.3 acres. Okay, it's very small. The only thing that it can be used for is to be built on. Right, so you can't do anything else. I got it in December, 1st of December, for $7,400 roughly and some change. That's after title calls, all that type of stuff. And then I sold it on June 20th. Okay, so about 6.5 months later for $7,000. Okay, and I ended up losing about $1,500. Okay, so number one, this took a tremendous amount of time to sell because I thought it was going to sell for more and I had it priced way too high. In general, my deals will sell in 9 days or less. Okay, so I just botched the deal. I just thought it was going to sell for more. And the reason I did that is because I had this deal that I sold for $25,000. Okay, and you can see I bought it for $800-900. That's with title fees, all that type of stuff. And then I sold it for $22,000. That was less realtor, title fees, stuff like that. And I walked away with about $13,000 in profit. Okay. Now, I was so confident that this was just a killer deal that I did. All right. And if you're wondering, okay, why did these sell so quickly? Well, I double closed it. Okay. It was on the market for a little bit longer, but this sold in under 9 days in terms of like when I first put it in the market. I was so confident in this deal. I'm like, man, this did so good that if I get something else in this neighborhood, I'll probably have some results. Right. And just to show you, okay, this is in Gratiot County, Michigan. Okay. You can look it up. It's on Rainbow Lake. All right. You can go look it up in the MLS bill. This is the property I lost money on, the $7,000 one. Okay, this is the property I made money on, this $25,000 one I showed you. Okay, this is in the same subdivision. This is in the same exact neighborhood, but you can see purely by being in a different area of the neighborhood, it's sold for a different amount. And I'll tell you a little bit about why that occurs. So in a neighborhood, there could be a lot of different things. In this one in particular, the water feature, like being on the lake, makes a huge difference. Like this property that sold for $175,000, well, that's because it was lakefront, right? I mean, that made a wild difference, right? But there was just something about this little section that wasn't as attractive. And if I had to guess, it's just that, the access to the lake, I believe the access was like down here. It's not as close, just not as desirable. Also, it can get affected by like, what are the other houses like around it? So if you have a neighborhood where like, let's say on this bend, the houses aren't really nice, they're kind of, cheaper houses, but then down here, they're like mega mansions, whatever. Well, obviously those lots are going to sell for more. Okay. The long and short of it is location matters. Purely by being on a different street, I made less money. Okay. And you can even see that, the ones around it sold for less. This sold for 9, that sold for 14. Right, and this was actually one of the reasons I thought the property would be good, because I'm like, hey, this one sold for 14. I could just do a quick flip. All right, so let me explain how I could avoid this loss. Number one, using OPM, other people's money. Right, so if I had sent this to what's called a joint venture funder, so I have people in my network who fund my deals and my clients' deals. Right, they partner with them on the deal, and then they split profits when they sell. They probably would have not funded it, especially the more conservative ones, because they would have had a second set of eyes and be like, hey, dude, even though yes, this one right next to it sold for 14, I'm kind of concerned. Why did this one sell for 9? And that discrepancy would probably hold them back from saying, I don't think this is going to sell for 14. Okay, I think it might actually sell for 9. All right. Now, in the off chance that they did fund it, I would have been protected from losing money, because The JV funder, they put up all the capital. So when you use a joint venture funder, you don't use any of your own money. That's why people use them, okay? And then you split the profits when you sell. Typically, it's like a 70-30 split when you're starting out, meaning you get 70% of profit, they get 30%, right? But they're the ones taking on all the risk, okay? So they're on the title, and then you have an agreement with them that says, hey, this is how our proceeds are going to be split once it sells. But there's nothing that comes back to you. So if you sell for a loss, like that's on them. They know that, right? Which is why they're conservative about the deals that they fund, right? They don't want to take a loss, right? Now, let's keep going. So also what I could have done is I could have negotiated harder, right? I could have looked at the closest comp, which was, or this one at 14, but I could have also looked at this one at 9,000 and said, hey, even this sold for 14, I'm concerned. Why did this sell for 9,000? It's basically, on that same street, right? That's concerning. And I should have said, you know what? Instead of assuming it's going to go for 14, probably going to go for 9, right? And I could have just negotiated down an extra $1,500. I would have broken even, right? Or negotiated down even further, right? And made money in the deal, okay? And number 3, and this is really what I should have done, and now what I do on pretty much every deal, is I should have double closed the deal, okay? So anytime I have a deal where I'm like not sure, like where there's a big discrepancy like this, it's like, well, that sold 14, this sold for 9, or there's any issues with the property that I know of, I tend to double close it because it's a safer bet for me. So let me explain what that is, okay? This is when you get a property under contract with the seller, okay? And then you get the rights to market the property, put it on the MLS for 90 to 120 days. So we were allowed to advertise it on the MLS, so places like Zillow, Redfin, stuff like that, okay? What this allows you to do is to test the market, to see if you're gonna get an offer at the price you want before you actually close on it, right? And then if you don't get a good response, you can simply cancel the contract and you can just walk away from that deal with no money lost, okay? That's why we like to do this. Now, if you do get a good response and say you get an offer that you can close on the property and then you can sell it to an end buyer, you could do that back to back on the same day. Okay, so essentially it's like wholesaling. It's slightly different in the way that it works because we're not assigning a contract. We're actually like literally selling it to someone else. We buy it, we sell it, but we can use other people's money in that process as well. I have a video on my channel called when should you do a double close the property or like versus a regular flip. Go ahead and watch that video. It explains exactly what double closing is. It goes more in depth. But just know it's one of the best strategies to use because it mitigates a lot of your risk. All right. Now, let's talk about the next type of risk when it comes to money. Okay, it's marketing. And this comes down to 2 distinct types of risk. So number 1 is spending too much money on marketing, right? And then number 2 is actually spending too little on marketing. Let me explain both of those, okay? Spending too much on marketing. This is what most people worry about. And to be frank, it's not that common unless you have a terrible marketing strategy and like you can't close deals, okay? An example of this would be if you sent out 10,000 what I like to call neutral offer postcards, which I'm going to show you in a second. It's a very, unfortunately, it's a common strategy that's an outdated tactic people are using to get land deals. It doesn't work that well anymore. And let's say you did that and you didn't get a deal. So let's just do some rough math here. Okay, I'm not saying this is exactly what it costs, but I want to show you. Let's say it costs 60 cents a postcard. So you spend $6,000 to send out 10,000 of these. And you have a 1% response rate, right? That would be typical for like a postcard type of thing. So you get like 100 responses. Okay, well, let's say you close 1 out of every 100 since they're lower quality, which we'll talk about in a second. And let's say that one deal makes you $10,000. That'd be an average land deal as long as you're targeting, the right size deals. Okay, well, you spent $6,000 to make $10,000. That's a 1.6x return. That's not a good return. Okay, even though you're making a return after all your other costs in business, like that wouldn't be profitable, right? So it's not good. This is the exact opposite strategy of what I teach because it's not that effective in today's market, right? Like sellers are more savvy. Okay, they understand their values a bit more, right? This strategy is outplayed and it doesn't work that way. Now, essentially, what this is, a neutral offer postcard, it's literally sending a postcard. Like maybe you've gotten those like postcards in the mail before if you own land or have any other assets that says like, hey, I want to buy your land, but it has no offer. Okay, like this is an example, right? Is this your property, right? And then they would put the image of the property. I'm interested in purchasing it, right? And then you put your phone number. It's a horrible strategy to use today. Let me explain why. Like, do not do this. It sucks. The problem with this strategy is it doesn't pre-qualify the seller. So let me explain what I mean by that. What type of person do you think you're going to get if you do that? If there's no number of like how much you want to give them, you're going to get anyone who is possibly interested in selling. So you can get people who want market value. Oh yeah, I'll sell my land to you. I bought it for 100. Well, I want 150. Or I want, $1 million. Like you're going to get a lot of those people. Those are tire kickers, right? And it's hard to do as a solo operator. Okay, let me explain. Because you're not pre-qualifying. You're basically saying, hey, got land? Want to sell it? People will be like, sure, I'd be open to it, right? But they're going to want the top dollar. You're going to get a ton of leads. It's going to be very hard for you to sort through the junk, and you're going to get burnt out because you're talking to unmotivated, crappy leads all day. That's not what we want, okay? Like, it's the exact opposite of what you should be doing. All right, now a caveat to this is, let's say that you have an extremely built out sales team. Okay, I'm talking you have setters, you have closers, you're phenomenal at sales, your salespeople are phenomenal, you know how to manage them, train them, right? Your KPIs are dialed in. That is not the vast majority of people that are listening to this. Like, that would only be if you've ran, if you haven't ran at least a 7-figure sales team, like, don't fucking do this strategy. Okay, like you got to be good, and you have to have a ran a team. If you ran a team, you could probably get away with it because you have basically someone who's taking those initial calls and like just filtering through all the crap, right? But if you're just getting started and you don't have what I just described, you don't have the team, you don't know how to build a team like that, like, I would not recommend doing this, okay? And to be frank, I don't even do this, all right? What you want to do instead is use what's called a blind offer, which I'm going to show you in a second. Okay, what a blind offer is it actually gives the price that you are willing to offer them. Okay, so on that, the market which you're going to send, which I'll show you what we send in a second as an example, it literally gives the price. Okay, I'm willing to offer you $50,000. Okay, what that does is it pre-qualifies the seller. Because think about it. If someone is like, okay, you're offering me 50, but they want 200, they're very unlikely to call. Yeah, you'll still get some calls from these people, but it's tremendously less. Because if they're calling you, they've already seen it, and obviously they're somewhat open to it, or else they won't call you. The people who are like, yo, I don't want this, like, you're just lowballing me, they throw it in the trash, right? They have to get taken off the list. Okay. Number two is because you're pre-qualifying it, you're getting a higher quality lead. So if you're getting people calling you who already know what you're willing to offer and they're interested in that, that means that they're a higher quality lead. They're more motivated to sell at your price. Okay. The other thing is that you can do this as a solo operator. And even if you have a team, your team's going to love it because you're going to get way higher quality leads coming in, right? And so because you're getting higher quality leads and you're getting a smaller quantity, you're going to close more deals, okay? That's the beauty of it, is that you're closing more deals because you're just talking to better sellers, and then it doesn't take that much time, okay? So let me explain what I mean. So this is the exact one that I use. I can't give out the one that we use because it's specific for our clients and that's proprietary, but this is an example of what one looks like that is somewhat similar to how it works. So the way that it works is it's usually a 2-page letter, okay? So the first page talks about you and your company and like why you're interested in buying their land, like that's the marketing stuff, okay? The second page is a purchase agreement, okay? The purchase agreement literally says how much they're willing to pay, price. Buyer will pay X amount, right? Now, I want to make something very clear because some people might not understand this. You will get some people that like sign the purchase agreement and send it back to you. I've had deals like that and I've made money and it's great, but that's not most people, okay? You still got to remember, like, the point of any marketing and what we're doing here with sending out letters is to get the lead to call us. We're just trying to get a higher quality lead. Okay, so I'm not expecting that they're just going to sign it, back, and I'm going to close the deal that way. Like, you still need to talk to them. Okay, and anyone that tells you that you don't, it's not a great strategy. Like, you're going to miss out on a tremendous amount of deals if you don't call people back, right? And like have a conversation. Like, you got to negotiate, right? Because someone might call in, say you offered 50, and be like, well, I want 70, right? And then it's up to you to negotiate, and you can 100% bridge that gap. But you're getting a higher quality lead. Just because someone comes in and says, hey, I want a bit more, like, that's human behavior. But the truth is that they'll probably take less because they know what your offer is, right? They're bluffing in essence, okay? So this is roughly what it looks like, all right? Now, let's look at that same campaign. Let's say you send out 10,000 letters, all right? But you do it blind offers like we're sharing, okay? Now, the key to this, okay, and this is, more of an art and something that, I've talked about on this channel before. It's also something that we just do for our clients because, we're good at it. You got to price them accurately and competitively, okay? Meaning, you want to offer 50 to 55% of market value. What you don't want to do, I'm telling you, this does not work anymore. I've done it. It does not work now. Is you don't want to lowball people. You don't want to offer them 30 or 45% because your response rate is going to be terrible. Okay? The market is not where it was 5-10 years ago. Sellers have gotten those letters. And a few years ago, 5-10 years ago, they would sell their land at 20, 25, 30% of market value. But they won't do it today because there's people just offering more. And just think about it logically. Who is a seller more likely to respond to? Someone who's offering more or someone who's offering less? Duh, the person who's offering more. So the strategy that we work on is we offer more, right? So that we can get that lead interested and then we negotiate when we're on the phone. Okay, we find characteristics about the property that allow us to get that deal even lower. So you might send the offer at 55%, but when we actually close the deal, we might be at 45, 40%. Okay? Now, let's say you get a 0.5% response rate. That would be something typical when you do these types of things. Okay, again, it sounds like I'm getting a 1, 2, 3% response rate. They're either like offering, 100% market value and totally messing it up, or they're not doing blind offers. Just not realistic, okay? So let's say you get 50 responses, okay? And I'm talking about like leads, not people who just like call it, like leads, all right? And let's say 40% of those are qualified, okay? So that'd be a fair number. And again, these KPIs can vary. I'm just trying to show you this as like an easy way for you to understand the math, okay? Let's say 40% of those are actually like qualified, like good, legitimate leads. You got 20 qualified leads, and you might be like, oh my God, like 10,000 and 20 leads, yes, like that's how direct mail works. Okay, like that's what we do. But the numbers shake out. Okay, and let's say you close 10% of leads, which I'll be honest with you, like that sucks. Like you should be closing at least 15%. Okay, but if you're closing 10%, you can still do it profitably. All right, and so let's say you get 2 deals. All right, you can expect to get a deal with 2,500 to 5,000 mailers. If you're better on the phones, which obviously you got to train on, we talk about this on the channel, and then you're better at targeting, right? It'll be less mail per deal. But let's say you just got 2 deals. Okay, so even if you didn't do that well in that campaign, you got 2 deals, meaning you got a deal every 5,000 letters that you sent, and you're targeting the right size properties, where you can make between 10 and 30K in profit. And let's just say it's on the lower side, so you get 2 deals at 10K profit. You'd make $20,000 revenue. Okay, and you spent $6,000 on mail. That means you spent $6,000, you made 20. That's a 3.3x return on ad spend. Okay, that's good, right? That's very good. That means if you put $1 in, you get 3.3 back. Now, as you get better over time, you should see higher returns, like 4, 5, sometimes even 6x. Okay, historically, we run about a 5.2x return on ad spend. So if you put $1 in, I get 5.2 back. Now, to be fair, I'm not saying you're going to get those results at all. I'm very good on the phones. My team is very good. We're also very dialed at targeting. But what I'm trying to show you here is that even if you're not as good, right, like you don't target the best areas, and then you're not that good closing on the phone, and you get 10% of leads, you're still highly profitable. If you put $1 in, you get 3.3 back. That's really good, right? Okay, now let's talk about the next problem. This is probably the most common problem, is spending too little on marketing, right? You gotta understand with what we do, like you gotta have a longer term perspective here, okay? Like it takes time. The mail's gotta go out, you gotta get on the phones, you gotta put the property up, you gotta sell it, right? The average deal cycle, if you're like on, the right types of properties and you're finding in-demand markets, you should expect 90 days or less, okay? It's not like instant like Facebook ads. It's like, oh, tomorrow, right? That just doesn't work for our industry because we're working with people that are a bit older, right? They respond better to mail. But you have to understand, like things take time, okay? So like you need to do this long-term perspective. If you're trying to get rich tomorrow, like I gotta do this, I'm gonna get rich tomorrow with this. No, you're not. Don't do this. Go find something else, okay? This is for someone who is a little more patient, but wants to have something that is tremendously profitable, okay? So the problem is this, like people see the amount of mail per deal that it takes. Like I'm talking about 2,500 to 5,000 letters, and they're like, oh man, I can just send out 5,000. I'm going to instantly get a deal, on that 5,000. And they also just think like, wow, that's like, and I can understand, I thought this way too. Is like, you're like, oh my God, I'm sending out thousands and thousands of letters. Well, should I get more deals? Like, no, that's not how it works. Okay. That's not how it's supposed to work. And again, the numbers shake out. So it doesn't matter. If it took me 10,000, letters to get a deal, but I run, a 3x profitability in that campaign, who cares how many letters it takes? Who just cares how much money you're making? That's what matters. You got to focus on those bottom line stats. Okay. I want to talk to you about a concept called regression to the mean. This is extraordinarily important anytime you're dealing with statistical sets of numbers. Okay, so like when we're talking about KPIs of like, hey, you should get a deal every 2,500 to 5,000 mailers, right? We're talking about a statistical set of numbers. You have to understand what regression to the mean is. Now it's a statistical term, so I'm going to make it very simple. When something is really high or low, it often regresses or moves closer to the average the next time. So let me explain what I mean by that. Let's say it takes you on average 5,000 letters to get a deal. Okay, that could mean a few scenarios are possible. Scenario number 1, it could mean you send out 5,000 letters and you get a deal, right? Scenario number 2, probably more likely, is you send out one batch of 5,000 letters, you get no deals, okay? Then you send out a second batch and you get 2 deals from that second batch, which would mean you sent out 10,000 letters in total and you got 2 deals, meaning you averaged 1 deal every 5,000. Or scenario number 3, which is possible if I had something similar happen, which I'm going to show you in a second. You send out 2 batches of 5,000, so you send out 10,000 total, and you only get 1 deal. So you're like, oh my God, I'm at 1 out of 10,000 when it should be 1 out of 5. And then you send a second batch of 5,000, and you get 2 deals. Okay, so in total, you sent out 15, you got 3 deals, meaning 1 out of every 5,000. Okay, this is why most people fail, is they just stop too early. Like they don't understand the concept that I just shared. They think, oh, every 5,000 I sent, I should get a deal, or whatever their own statistic is. So like, let's say for them it's 3,000. Every 3,000 I should get a deal. No, it's literally not how it works. There's regression to the mean, right? You're going to have these variances, okay? But everything averages out when you give it enough time. You need to give it 90 days, 6 months, a year to see like true average statistics. If you judge it on too short of a time frame, like you've got these wild fluctuations. You have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Okay, so you have to know that if you first start this out, right? So they'll send out 5,000 letters, they don't get a great response, they don't get a deal, like quit. It's like, well, that's on you. You just have to do this longer. Like again, like I literally just showed the statistics. You know what I mean? What they fail to realize is that it's regression to the mean at play. Okay, and more than likely, if they just stick it out in that example I showed, they get deals, be wildly profitable. You know. Let me give you an example. This is February 2024. I sent out over 13,000 letters. I only got 2 deals. Okay, so that's like a letter every 7,000%, right? Like a deal every 7,000. That's not good. Typically for me, we're going to deal about every $3,500. Okay, so this was like way out of campaign. I was not good. Okay, let me show you what came from that campaign. I got this deal under contract. Okay, this was a 20.17 acre out in Johnson County, Illinois. It's an amazing county. You can steal it if you want. I don't care. I already made money there. Okay, I got this one deal. We bought this on 4/10 of 24 for $50,000. You can see down there. I bought this with a partner. That's why I blurred out his information. Okay, and then we closed on it on 5/16/24. We sold it for $120,000. Now I had a JV partner, so I had to split profits. This is what got wired to my bank account: $39,000. Okay? I was wildly profitable on this campaign. Just do the math. Think about this. If I sent out 13,000 letters and it cost me 60 cents a letter, okay? That's $7,800 in marketing costs, and I made 39,000. 39 divided by 7,800, that's a 5x return. That's amazing. But if I had freaked out and been like, oh my gosh, I only got this one deal, I would be like, it's the worst campaign ever. That's not how it works, okay? So let's just summarize, okay? Let's talk about the things that are risky, and let's talk about what not to do. Because now that you know the risk, you know how to avoid them too, right? So here's what not to do. Here's what's risky. Using your own money on deals. Don't do that, okay? Unless you got a crap ton of capital to play with, I'm talking like hundreds and hundreds of thousands, just don't use your own money. There's so many ways to use other people's money, from JV funding to double closes. You don't need to use your money, okay? Don't overestimate your comps. This is a big problem that people have. They get too excited. They're like, oh my gosh, they're like, there's this one comp they cherry pick. There's this one comp that did well. My comp, mine is going to be that magical property that sells for more. Probably not. So don't do that. Okay. You don't negotiate hard. You're soft, right? You're like, oh, I got a good enough deal. No, negotiate harder. You should negotiate as hard as possible. Try and get the best possible deals at the lowest price. Okay. Don't send out the wrong type of marketing. Don't do neutral letters. They don't work well in today's market. Okay. Unless you're a very advanced marketer and salesperson, do not do that. Okay. Do not do that. And don't send out too little mail. Don't send out 5,000, but it doesn't work. Okay, well, it doesn't work because you don't work, right? You can't forget about regression to mean. So here's what to do. Use other people's money on deals. That's what smart investors do. Double close it, JV funding. Don't put your own capital at risk, okay? Double close deals. It's an amazing strategy, okay? It does take, a little bit of more, nuance, and that's stuff I talk about on this channel and we help our clients with it. However, you can test the market. It's way less risky in that sense because you can figure out, hey, you can really put on the market and see, okay, I'm getting offers for this amount. This is probably what's going to sell for, right? Be conservative on your comps. Don't overestimate things. Just think conservatively, okay? You don't need to be insanely pessimistic, but you shouldn't be overly optimistic about something that's helpful. And send out accurate blind offers. Learn how to properly, comp areas and figure out what the land values are, and then send offers that are competitive, 50 to 55% of market value, right? And make sure you're doing this correctly. You don't want to, mess that up, okay? And send out enough mail to get results. Come into this with a long-term perspective. Don't just say, I'm going to send out 5,000, see what happens. No, commit to 10,000, 15,000. Come into this and say, hey, I want to see where I can be a year from now. If you're doing this too short of perspective, like where can I be 30 days from now, it's not going to work. This is a business that takes a little bit longer, right? When you first get started, it's going to take you 90, 120 days to get that first deal in terms of one full cycle, right? If you're doing everything right, you should get your first deal under contract in 2 months or less, right? But in terms of actually selling it, it's going to take some time. You've got to build a pipeline up. So approach this for, hey, where can I be a year from now, right? Don't look at where am I going to be a month from now? If you need something that fast, go look at other options, okay? This is for people that are more patient, but that want to see amazing returns. So I hope this helps, and see you in the next one.